Now, I understand, sir, that in the aftermath of the bombing of Flight 182, members of various, for lack of a better word, congregations at Gurdwaras were saddened by the bombing of the flight.
That's correct.
People had sympathy for those who lost their loved ones.
Yes.
Indeed, there were 6 on that flight.
Yes.
I also understand, though, that in the Gurdwaras that you frequented, the leadership did not engage in any special prayer service.
Not I know of.
And you were not aware of any public statement by any of the leaders of the Gurdwaras that you frequented in those days.
There was some leadership who condemned this action, and they also demanded the inquiry into it, that to reach the deep inside view that who could have done it.
And certainly, as you understand it, sir, perpetrating an act like that's not consistent with the tenets of Sikhism.
No.
Now, as it came to be eventually, of course, we know that people were charged. We know that people have alleged that Mr. Parmar was involved. And your sense that this was an unforgivable act, was that something that was shared by members of the community as well, at least those that you transacted with?
Yes, the community has shared this view between themselves, because this is our basic core principle of our religion, that we cannot initiate any aggression, but we can defend ourselves.
Right. And that is to say, it's unforgivable regardless of who the author is, regardless of the religion of the author or otherwise.
That's correct.
Now, I'd like to move to another topic subject to the Commissioner's direction. I'd like to move now to the Sikh community's relationship with the Canadian authorities. And when I say Sikh community, sir, I'm focusing it on your community in Toronto.
Okay.
And just to be clear, in the years after the bombing, and I'd like to mark it now from the date of the bombing to the mid-90s, in that time frame, okay?
Okay.
So those 10 years. Did you frequent one Gurdwara, or would you frequent more than one?
I will go to more than one Gurdwara.
And I'd like to get a sense from you, sir, about how, amongst the people that you dealt with, whether anybody was talking about Canadian authorities coming to members of the Sikh community to try and get information to assist in the investigation of what we've characterized here as an unforgivable act.
Yes, there is members of CSIS, RCMP. They come to Sikh community, especially they were preying on the refugees whose case was still under consideration by the Immigration Department. And they were preying on them, and CSIS came to me too, and they spent 2 to 3 years with me, and at the end I was very angry with them.
Well, leaving that aside for the moment, more generally in the community, if I can ask you this, sir, what was the sense of whether or not people ought to or ought not to cooperate with Canadian authorities? If you can give us some glimpse into that.
Yeah, because there was some incident happen in early '86 summer, I believe, and those incidents make us believe that Canadian security forces are sharing information with the Indian police, and Indian police is known to be killing the people mercilessly, right? And for that reason, nobody wants any action when they visit India, or if they have their relatives in India. Nobody wants them to get harmed by the Indian police if somebody share their information with them.
All right. Now, you referring to the death of Mr. Kello?
That's the major incident which was happen and make us believe what I just said.
Now, I'd like you to cast your mind back. Was it actually something that people were talking about in the community in those days?
Yes. We did talk more than this too, because there was some other people whose relatives got arrested. Even one of the Air Force person who was a retired Air Force man from the Indian Army, and he got arrested because his son was here, sympathizer to the people who got arrested in Hamilton.
Now, I understand that the concern was in part driven by what was read in the media, in the newspapers, about what had been reported, about what Canadian authorities had done. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you have no direct knowledge of what Canadian authorities have done. Your understanding of it was based on what you read in the newspapers and perhaps what people in the community said.
There was some timing plus the news media reports. Yes.
Right. And the effect of this, sir, the incident, the Kello incident,
Yes.
was to have certain members of the community, at least, feel concerned about talking to the police or, let's say, the intelligence service.
Yes.
How widespread, in your view, sir, was that feeling?
I think it was quite wide. It was almost, I will say, more than 60% people feel that way.
Now, certainly being a leader in the community, sir, you could see the usefulness in cooperating with law enforcement, that is to investigate this unforgivable act. From your perspective, were you advocating for people to cooperate with the police so that this could be solved?
It never came to my attention like such a question like this before, but yes, I will.
So whilst it was a view held by some, you were able at least to say we should try to cooperate.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that you had some dealings with CSIS. As I understand it, they approached you to assist them.
That's right. They want me to spy on my community.
And you were not prepared to do that?
I was not prepared to do that, no.
Similarly, as I understand it, you were the RCMP approached you.
They interviewed me, yes.
And apart from that, they weren't asking you to provide them with ongoing information, were they? Was it simply just an interview?
It was an interview regarding that they were asking me like what relationship I have in Punjab and who I know at that time, who I do not know at that time.
And obviously, you were never offered any money by anybody to provide information
No.
or anything like that. You simply declined to cooperate with CSIS.
Yeah, because their way of approach was not right, and the way they were asking me to provide the information, it was not regarding any incident which took place just like Air India or some other incident, but they generally want me to spy on my community and give them information from the gurdwaras, which I didn't want to do that.
Okay. Now, apart from the Kello incident and the sharing of information that we have discussed,
Yes.
we've heard evidence from some police officers and some intelligence officers in our other proceedings earlier this year that there were challenges in gaining access to the Sikh community. There was a sense that it was difficult to get information from the Sikh community. Other than the sharing of information, did it make a difference that many of the officers were not South Asian? Was that an issue?
I think when there is an officer from the community, then it makes easier to get the information because the community member feel comfortable talking to someone who knows their language and also who's one of them, and instead of from the other communities. And one main reason was not sharing the information was the mistrust which we over time got developed for the security forces.